I share what I'm listening to and my thoughts on music and the business daily for free at helloyassine.com. What's poppin', y'all? I did not know that a no Jumper Rico was going to be on the bingo card for this year. And no, it did not involve Adam22, but it's very eerie because a recent podcast that Adam22 did, and it also involved his co-host, his main co-host, Brick Baby, and he's one of the people that got arrested. So the people that got arrested were the following, and the Justice Department, and Adam22 was actually the first to tweet this out, and he said the following: Big U's famous Crip figure, like kind of like an OG. He's had beef with Whack 100, who has a show with Adam22, and there's static between those two. Brick Baby, who's a co-host, Loose Cannon, who was rolling with Whack 100 for quite a while. They were part of the Exposers, where they expose people for snitching on Clubhouse. And Loose Cannon recently did a podcast with Brick Baby after he had a bit of a falling out with Whack 100. So they got arrested in a Rolling 60s Crip takedown called Operation Drawdown, where you can see a bunch of other people were included in this. Now, for some context, just the day before this podcast dropped with Brick Baby and Loose Cannon sitting, Brick Baby and Loose Cannon had beef for a very long time too. So it's kind of odd. You're like, okay, these guys are getting hit with a Rico and they don't even like each other. And even in that interview, they were talking about fighting or getting up and like squaring up with each other potentially if things went left. But I'm going to play you guys this clip where it talks about dirt that Big U allegedly had on Brick Baby. So I'm going to roll you guys that clip right now, and this is freaky.
But what I'm saying is, cuz it's just, he do police shit. And he gets paid by the police. So I can't sit there and justify certain shit because Brick knows, since Brick want to bring up some dirt, I'm going to bring up some dirt, right? Because cuz been blackmailing Brick.
Nah, he ain't blackmailing.
Cuz been blackmailing Brick.
He ain't never blackmailed
for years.
He ain't never blackmailed me
for
ever
years
in life.
Blackmailing a blackmail is crazy.
What?
Blackmailing him with what?
I know, but
he
at
ain't
the
never
end
blackmailed me. 06 Crip.
But
we all we in it together.
Stop me when I'm lying.
Nigga, I'm stopping you because you said blackmail. Nigga,
okay,
blackmail is holding it over somebody's head.
Okay,
we all did something together. We all did something together, brother.
So as you guys just heard, Loose Cannon accuses Big U of blackmailing, not extorting, Brick Baby, and Brick Baby makes it clear, like, hey, it's not extorting, or it's not, I keep confusing extorting and blackmail. It's not blackmailing. We were just a part of something together. You know, if you know, you know, we can't really talk about it. That's a little freaky because then they get arrested. And I'm going to play you guys the news clip that they give a bit of an overview on what Big U was up to. And this guy, sheesh, the guy was a menace.
Rachel, we're in West LA, right behind the Federal Building off Wilshire Boulevard in the 405, where we have a multi-agency investigation. The FBI, the LAPD, and U.S. Marshals. According to the FBI, early this morning, they raided the Rolling 60s neighborhood Crip. Now, we've seen at least a dozen gang members that have been detained and arrested here. Exactly where that raid was conducted is unclear, but we understand more suspects are en route to be booked here. Rachel?
All right, Scott.
Mr. Henley is a widely known leader within the Rolling 60s. He rose to prominence in that gang decades ago, and he has since been a fixture on the internet, talk shows, and podcasts, all things that law enforcement have looked at closely as part of this investigation. He has maintained the image of an entertainment industry entrepreneur running a music label and of somebody who gives back to the community here in Los Angeles, funding a South LA-based charity, developing options, which purports to help at-youth risk escape gang life and escape the perils of gangs in high-crime areas. The facts alleged in the complaint paint a very different picture. It is one of a murderer, a thief, a liar, and a cheat, and the criminals that enabled him. For example, Mr. Henley engaged in a murder of a musician signed to his label in 2021 and dumped the victim's body in Las Vegas off of the I-15 freeway. He then attempted to evade and obstruct the investigation into the murder, including ordering witnesses not to speak with law enforcement. Henley's criminal enterprise also engaged in other crimes, including transporting prostitutes across state lines, extorting strip clubs, marijuana dispensaries, and other businesses, and fraudulently applying for COVID loans in the form of a business relief loan. On that application, Mr. Henley falsely stated that his music label, Unique Music, operated at a $200,000 profit in 2019 and was entitled to government assistance, despite the reality that the company had operated at a loss and was ineligible for such relief. Finally, Mr. Henley is accused of embezzling donations made by celebrities, professional athletes, and businesses to his charity, Developing Options, which, as I said, purports to give South LA at-risk youth alternatives to gang violence, drugs, and other criminal activity. Henley used this charity as a front. He used it to conceal his fraudulent activities, his criminal enterprises activities, and evade detection from law enforcement. If convicted on the racketeering conspiracy, he and his co-conspirators face approximately a 20-year federal prison sentence. I want to thank our federal law enforcement partners, our state law enforcement partners who brought about the result here today. The Los Angeles Metropolitan Gang Task Force from the FBI. It's comprised of FBI agents, LAPD officers, IRS criminal investigation, the U.S. Department of Justice Inspector General's Office, Los Angeles Police Department, the North Las Vegas Police Department. This case is a great example of state and federal law enforcement working together.
So you guys just heard, like, how do you allegedly kill somebody that's signed to your label? It's insane levels of menacing. But in the justice.gov release that they put out, it says longtime Rolling 60s Crips leader and show business entrepreneur charged in federal complaint alleging racketeering crimes. And 18 other Rolling 60s members charged federally. So this is a federal indictment. It's not like what Young Thug was facing. Young Thug was facing the state case. These guys are facing a federal case. And this is really unfortunate for Brick Baby. I don't really know too much about Loose Cannon, like his dealings. I just know the brief overview that I gave you. I don't follow that deep into things, but Brick Baby, it seemed like the guy was turning his life around for at least the past year and a half, 2 years, trying to stay out of the BS as much as possible. But like I said, sometimes when your past runs so deep, it doesn't matter how long it's been, they're probably going to come after you. But they're saying that the leader of this organization, Eugene Henley Jr., Big U, of the Hyde Park neighborhood in South LA, is charged in complaint with conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. And then he says 2 other alleged members, Sylvester Robinson, and Mac Martin 50 Bearclaw, were arrested in the same criminal complaint in which Henley is charged. You could even check that Loose Cannon, this happened so recent, because on the IG story, Loose Cannon has posted something 3 hours ago, and in the story 8 hours prior, he was posting a clip from this very interview.
What's IBM?
IBM Hoodlum.
What's IBM stand for, though?
Integrity before money.
There we go.
That's right.
Shout out the IBM team, IBM Hoodlum. Shout out.
So it's a 107-page federal complaint that claims that the alleged victims of Big U, which they're accusing him of murder, kidnapping, robbery, extortion, and fraud, and this includes athletes and musicians, and this is the whole check-in thing. So these athletes and musicians were required to check in before they arrived in the city in order for them to get protection. What do we call that? Extortion. And this is potentially what a lot of people had issue or that had criticisms for, maybe perhaps people like Soulja Boy or even Chris Brown. They're like, yo, why are these guys getting down with Bloods? They didn't even have to do that. Well, potentially, if they were white, they definitely wouldn't have had to do that, because we don't see white rappers having to deal with that. We didn't see people telling, or biracial rappers, because we're going to use Logic as an example. Logic lived in LA for a long time. They weren't telling Logic, you got to check in and get extorted. But it seemed like maybe the best case scenario for a Soulja Boy or Chris Brown was to just get down with the set, I guess. And they were relatively young when they moved to LA. But to continue, federal authorities likened Henley's Big U enterprise to a mafia-like organization that relied on his stature and long-standing association with the Rolling 60s and other street gangs to intimidate businesses and individuals. More than a dozen others are in custody tied to the case, including Brick Baby and Loose Cannon. The arrests are part of an effort to make our communities safer and rid our streets of these criminal street gangs, including ones operated by violent felons. A widely known leader within the Rolling 60s, and they've accused him of kidnapping and shooting the rapper, like I said, and shooting him in the face and leaving his body in the Las Vegas desert because of the robbery of a dispensary, because that dispensary stopped making extortion payments. So this is wild levels of insanity. And the interesting part about this is Whack 100 and Loose Cannon, even Loose Cannon in that interview or podcast with No Jumper was talking about, oh, Big U's doing police stuff, Big U's doing police stuff. Whack 100 was saying Big U's doing police stuff. So they were trying to frame him as he's getting paid by the police, he's an informant, this and that, which I don't know if that's true. I'm not accusing him of that. But if that was the case, well, he just got picked up. He got picked up by the feds, though, which is different from the local police. So perhaps he had to deal with the LAPD, but then the federal government came in and said, nah, it's time for us to pick this guy up, or we've rinsed him for all that we need him for. At that point, the LAPD probably had to talk with them, because if they wanted to get rid of him, or if they still needed him, they likely maybe would have asked that the federal government chill out a little bit while they still, gathered more information. But this is going to hurt I don't know if this hurts No Jumper or gives them more content, because Brick became a mainstay in there, and this is just going to be Adam 22 getting hit harder than Vlad has ever got hit, with people talking about, man, we told y'all Adam 22 was here, his dad worked for Bill Clinton, he's here to take down all these gang members, etc. And these guys were OGs. Like, they were older dudes in the 50s. One of them was talking about transporting an individual to engage in prostitution. Armani, a.k.a. Monty, which is in the LA Times story. There was the Las Vegas killing, of course, that we covered. And I'm not going to lie. It seems like Quando Rondo made the right choice to get out of there and put down that flag. Because he even talks about having pulled up, seen what was going on with Big U, and said he did not know that this is what it all meant when he first signed up to be in a gang when he was, a 12-year-old? And in interviews, and this is the thing, they even talked about interviews in the clip I played you guys earlier, Henley, Big U, said, I never made no athlete, no rapper give me nothing. They reach out to me because they feel a connection to me in my neighborhood for whatever reason. Maybe rappers need street cred, but nah, there's no way an athlete, NBA player, is reaching out to check in because they want to show love. Like, come on now. Well, yeah, I'm really interested to see how deep this goes. There's fraudulently obtaining funding from the LA mayor's office. That's what the government is accusing him of, for the Gang Reduction Youth Development Program. So they say here in the LA Times article, since around 2015, Henley's nonprofit Developing Options has received $550,000 annually as part of the program. The nonprofit was allotted $2.3 million from the city. So this guy's finessing the city from July 2018 to 2023, allegedly finessing the city. And he's drawn hundreds of thousands of dollars purportedly in salary. And then they say the program has an extensive mandatory handbook that is appended to each contract and the developing options must comply with. So based on the review of documents in the course of this investigation, Developing Options appears to have failed to comply with some or potentially all of those requirements. They also said he fraudulently applied for pandemic relief loans for that record, not only his record label, but for this youth development program, which I'm not sure if it's a 501c3 or what that falls under. And then they also accused him of committing wire fraud by embezzling more than $100,000 in donations. And none of the donors were identified in the complaint. And then one of those donors was Draymond Green, making a $20,000 donation in 2019. And they said that Big U embezzled the entire donation, transferring the funds to his personal checking account. Another one was Shaquille O'Neal. If you guys don't, Shaquille O'Neal wrote a $20,000 check to the organization for the Crenshaw Rams youth sports team. And they said that Big U transferred most of that money to his account. So these are some crazy allegations. And this also kind of makes sense because Shaq and Academics was talking about how Shaq rolls basically like a gangster, because Shaq reached out to Academics' girl and there's been some static between them because of that. And Shaq hit up Ac and said, yo, what's the problem? What's going on? And Academics said that he heard from a bunch of other people that Shaq is really tapped in here on some gangster stuff. So perhaps this has something to do with that. Not entirely sure. But this is wild. No Jumper's about to have a ton of content, and we're about to get another wild case. Like I said a year or two ago, the 2020s is the decade of hip-hop cases. We're just getting criminal case after criminal case after civil case. We're getting more cases than music. But let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Go to helloyassine.com and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Peace.